Hello, everyone. It is February 5th, 2021. Today's afternoon devotional and Bible study. We will be reading through 1 Samuel chapter 19, and Jesus is calling for today. So, without further ado, let's jump into Jesus is calling for February 5th, 2021. Seek my face. You will find not only my presence, but also my peace. Ah, sorry. But also my peace. To receive my peace, you must change your grasping, controlling stance to one of openness and trust. The only thing you can grasp without damaging your soul is my hand. Ask my spirit within you to order your day and control your thoughts. For the mind controlled by the spirit is life and peace. You can have as much of me and my presence as you want. Through thousands of correct choices each day, the most present choice you face is whether to trust me or to worry. You will never run out of things to worry about, but you can choose to trust me, no matter what. I am an ever-present helper in trouble. Trust me. Though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. That was inspired by 3 different sections of the Bible. The first, the mind of a sinful man is death. The mind controlled by the Spirit is life and peace. Romans 8:6. The Lord lift up his continuance upon you and give you peace. Numbers 6:26. And then lastly, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth will give way and the mountains will fall into the heart of the sea. Psalm 46:1-2. Yeah, that idea of choosing things isn't necessarily something that's going to separate us from God's love. And when I was first reading, I'm like, wait, is that what this is trying to say? Like, if we don't make the right decision, we're going to be separated. But no, it was are we going to choose to focus on God? Are we going to choose to focus on his forgiveness? Are we going to choose, to go, God, help me, call out to God? I think that's more what it was saying. But at first, as I was reading those words, I'm like, this seems kind of off. And then I was like, no, okay, I think I get what it's saying. Which I do think that is correct. So now, we're going to jump into the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 19. So, so far in the story, David defeated Goliath. Everyone was like, yes, this is amazing. And Saul ended up, giving David a bunch of responsibility and tried to kill David a couple times by going like, hey, why don't you take a few hundred men and go over here and do this and that and the other. And David kept on coming back successful. And as David was gaining success with this, that, and the other, he started getting fearful as he was starting to lose favor with God, starting to lose favor with his people, and his jealousy turned to hatred. And to the point of he grabbed spears and tried to whip them at David, and David kind of ducked, and then he was like, oh no, I'm afraid. And then he's like, well, I did promise you one of my daughters, so why don't you give me 1,000 foreskins of our enemies? And that would be an awful job. All right, we killed this guy. Let's cut that off. Anyways, and he went and he did it. And so I was like, okay, fine. Well, I guess you got to marry my daughter. So go marry my daughter. And then his daughter loved David. And he's like, oh no, everything's working out for him. And everything I do to try to stop David is failing. It's almost as if God's favoring him over me, which he was told is going to happen. But yeah, Saul's jealousy is turning to hatred and fear and insecurities and all that sort of jazz. So we're going to continue the story from there. First Corinthians, or not First Corinthians. Why do I say Corinthians all the time? 1 Samuel chapter 19, starting at verse 1. I'm going to take one more sip. All right. Let's go. Saul now urged his servant and son, Jonathan, to assist David. But, to assist David. But Jonathan, because of his strong affection for David, told him what his father was planning. Tomorrow morning, he warned him, you must find a hiding place out in the fields. I'll ask my father to go out there with me, and I'll talk to him about you. Then I'll tell you everything I can find out. The next morning, Jonathan spoke with his father about David, saying many good things about him. The king must not sin against his servant David, Jonathan said. He's never done anything to harm you. He has always helped you in any way he could. Have you forgotten about the time he risked his life to kill the Philistine giant, and how the Lord brought a great victory to all of Israel as a result? You were certainly happy about it then. Why should you murder an innocent man like David? There's no reason for it at all. So Saul listened to Jonathan and vowed, as surely as the Lord lives, David will not be killed. Afterward, Jonathan called David and told him what had happened. Then he brought David to Saul, and David served in the courts as before. War broke out again after that, and David led his troops against the Philistines. He attacked them with such fury that they all ran away. But one day, when Saul was sitting at home with a spear in hand, the tormenting spirit from the Lord suddenly came upon him again. As David played his harp, Saul hurled a spear at David, but David dodged out of the way, and leaving the spear, struck the wall. He fled and escaped into the night. Then Saul sent troops to watch David's house. They were told to kill David when he came out the next morning. But Michal, David's wife, warned him, "If you don't escape tonight, you will be dead by morning." So she helped him climb through the window and fled as he escaped. Then she took an idol and put it in his bed, covered it with blankets, and put a cushion of goat's hair on its head. When the troops came to arrest David, she told him he was sick and couldn't get out of bed. But Saul sent the troops back to get David. He ordered, "Bring him to me in his bed so I can kill him." But when they came to carry David out, they discovered that it was only an idol in the bed with a cushion of goat's hair at its head. "Why have you betrayed me like this and let my enemy escape?" Saul demanded of Michal. "I had to," Michal said. "He threatened to kill me if I didn't help him." So David escaped and went to Ramah to see Samuel, and he told him all that Saul had done to him. Then Samuel took David with him to live at Neoth. When the report reached Saul that David was at Neoth in Ramah, he sent troops to capture him. But when they arrived and saw Samuel leading a group of prophets who were prophesying, the Spirit of God came upon Saul's men, and they also began to prophesy. When Saul heard what had happened, he sent other troops, but they too prophesied. The same thing happened a third time. Finally, Saul himself went to Rahab and arrived at the gate well in Seku, where Samuel and David had where are Samuel and David? He demanded. "They are in Neoth and Ramah," someone told them. But on the way to Neoth and Ramah, the Spirit of God came upon Saul, and he too began to prophesy. all the way to Neoth. He tore off his clothes and lay naked on the ground all day and night, prophesying in the presence of Samuel. The people who were watching exclaimed, "What? Even Saul is a prophet?" May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. All right. Yeah, so there's some interesting things in there too. So you have Saul making the vow again. And I guess you could say he didn't break it, but he definitely tried to break it. David won't die. Like, I won't try to kill David, or whatever was his vow. And then he's sitting there and he's stewing, and David's playing the harp for him, which used to bring such relief. And then Saul grabs his spear and chucks it at him again, trying to kill him. And David's like, all right, I gotta go. And then Saul orders his men to kill him. Like, you just made a vow towards God. You were willing to kill Jonathan because he broke a vow that he didn't even make, but that you made other people take. And now you make a vow and you're just going to, like, break it and kill a man. Like, Saul does not see what he is doing. He doesn't see how he's falling short, or better yet, he does see it, and it makes him angry. He feels like he can't do it. Like, I'm projecting a little bit on him, but like, you see how he's acting, the choices that he's making, the jealousy that he feels, how he's contradicting himself, how he's backing out, and how he's saying, I'm going to do this, and then he does that. And then David, while he's facing this, he could stand up and fight. He has a bunch of people that look towards him, but he understands the authority structure. And he's not just going to lay down and die, but he does flee. He escapes. He doesn't fight back. He goes, all right, I have a bad leader right now, and I'm going to make a correction. I'm going to fight this. And he does. There's powers and authority in our world that we have to subject ourselves to, whether that's at work or whatever. But if we are in a really toxic situation, maybe we have to change jobs. If we have a really bad cell phone company, instead of jumping through the loops, then maybe we pick a different cell phone company. We don't have to stay with our abusers necessarily. And we'll see time and time again, even though David escapes his abuser, he still finds a way to forgive but not stay in that situation. We see all the opportunities that we're going to see a bunch of opportunities that Saul gets, to try to kill David, and then David actually has an opportunity to take Saul's life, and he doesn't do it. We don't have to stay in abusive situations, and we talked about this before. If you're in an abusive situation, it's not good. Get out. You don't have to stay there. When we talk about forgiveness and all that jazz, it doesn't mean put yourself into a compromising position. But work at finding a way to forgive. Maybe finding forgiveness might be, you need help. You're doing this for this reason. You're doing this for that reason. So I'm going to escape the situation. I'm going to heal, and we're going to try to find you help. I'm going to call the authorities, because if you're left on your own, you're just going to continue to hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt. Far too often, victims of sexual assault don't tell the authorities, and then the person might get beat up, they might get whatever, and then they go and they do it again. And like, sometimes forgiveness doesn't mean that you neglect justice. Sometimes that's still a part of it. And when we look back one of my favorite sayings that we read from Micah 6:8. It's, this is what God requires of us: to seek justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. So yeah, a lot of times we vote for what we think is okay by how we spend our time and our money. So that's what people think of. If I don't like something, I'm just not going to watch it. I'm just not going to participate in it. I'm just not going to. I'll be separate from that. I don't have to rally and get a bunch of other people against it. Chances are that'll bring more eyes and attention to it anyway. So what's the point? Like, I'm not going to use Wish. I downloaded it once. I looked around, played around for a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, no, this is. I don't feel like this is a very ethical. A lot of it. So I'm going to stop participating in it. And that's my choice. I'm not going to tell everyone jump up on and wave my banners and flags to, for one, bring attention to it, and then like talk people out of it. But yeah, anyways, just some ideas and thoughts. I guess I do advertise a little bit about other like cell phone companies, because I got kind of abused when it came to like Rogers and Bell, and I'm like, there's a better way. But yeah, anyways, let's pray. AJC, awesome Jesus Christ, I thank you so much for this story. How we can see Saul's bitterness, his jealousy, his insecurity, his wanting to hold on to power as a way of foreshadowing to the religious rulers in Jesus' day. How they get jealous, how they want to hold on to their power and their influence, and someone's coming up that's challenging that, and their reaction is, we're gonna kill him. And they did. And in doing that, they kind of sealed their fate. Jesus claimed the biggest victory that day. But Lord, as that's foreshadowing, I thank you that we can go back and we can read Saul. How we can see how he started off so promising, and then he made bad decisions to take his eyes off of you and put himself into the position of God amongst his people. How he started to use and abuse his position. How when people started to challenge it, for no reason, he got angry. He gave David his armor and his sword, and David rejected it. And rejected him, as God was like, you're making decisions that are rejecting me. And seeds of bitterness came in there. Instead of Saul correcting his ways, he doubled down on his sin as he got worse and worse and worse. And he'd make a promise to his son and then turn around that night and not only lose his temper in a moment, but then would order other people to follow his sinful ways. And David fled. David didn't stand up and fight, even though David was smart and cunning and humble and would have been able to probably defeat Saul. He chose to run, to respect the authority that God had established. And he ran to a religious authority in his life. In Israel, a retired Samuel. And God honored that. I thank you for using Samuel in his position. He fled. David fled to the closest he could get to you on this earth. Lord, we have churches all over town, all over the country, May they be places of refuge and safety. Whether that's their online presence or their physical presence, especially after COVID is done. May they not be places of hurt and hate, but places of healing and mercy and humility. And may they fight for justice. Against injustice, breaking the chains of oppression. Lord, thank you so much for giving us this illustration, as it's so easy to see ourselves in the position of Saul, even though we might not be kings. There's been times when we've been jealous or made to feel insecure, and we've projected feelings of hate and disgust onto those others. And I pray that in those moments that we see ourselves doing this, that we can stop and be really cheesy and go, what would Jesus do in this situation? Would Jesus continue to pour on the hate? Or would he try to make amends? We know. You told us to drop everything when we know that we've made an offense and try to make things right. Sometimes that means humbling yourself. Stepping back and going, all right, this person has a gift, or this person has that, and this person has that. David did nothing wrong. Yet Saul was full of so much fear and anger and hate. But David did nothing wrong. When we start feeling these feelings towards people that didn't do anything wrong, help guard our hearts, help change our minds, help us to focus on you and your love and your forgiveness and your humility, and may we learn to celebrate what they are doing right instead of how we are receiving what they're doing as something against us, when there's a good chance it has nothing to do with us. Help keep our egos in check. Lord, you are awesome. Thank you so much for loving us, for using us, for guiding us. You're awesome, Lord. Thank you so much. Amen. All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a fantastic day. And it's Friday. You know what that means. It means that it's a snowy day. Yeah. Later, guys.